So I want you to be aware that it did not escape my attention that a certain member of the media who a few years ago, when Justin Fields was going through his pre-draft process, went on a prominent cable television station and regurgitated some story that he heard that Justin Fields was a, how did he put it? Last one in, first one out kind of guy, that there were questions about his work ethic, so to speak. Something about that. I don't want to say who it is. I'll just tell you, he works for what I would, I guess, consider a rival. I don't work for him, but his name rhymes with Dan Orlovsky. But he came out and he said, now he's completely backpedaled. He's looking like Deion Sanders in 92, prime time Deion Sanders, backpedaling. Like, I think Justin Fields could be an MVP. That's how quickly the world has now changed on Justin Fields from he can't throw, terrible work ethic. Like, he might be the MVP. Yeah, okay, I get it. Listen, the real ones have been there since day one. And I think that when this thing ends up working out the way that we want it to, we're going to be the ones who celebrate, and those who want to just kind of glom on after the fact. Like, you can have your moment, but make no mistake, we don't forget what you said. And I don't think Justin does either. But in any event, we got a great show for you tonight. Bears camp is in full swing. So, Sammy, I'm excited. Let's go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Tuesday night. You know what that means. It is time for Take It to the Rank. The Bears are back in training camp. It's an exciting time to be a football fan, especially if you're a fan of the Chicago Bears. And normally we would be welcoming in our co-host, Carmen Vitale of FoxSports.com, but she has been on the road, jumping around to a lot of camps, starting off in Jacksonville over the weekend and moving around. It's hard to keep track of her. She was in Dallas, I believe, earlier today. She might or might not join us. I told her, listen, I say it's early in camp. It's like what we saw. We saw Roshan Johnson with Kari Blasingame and somebody else. Nate Davis was out today on Tuesday. So perhaps a lot of, as Aaron Nagler likes to say, there's a lot of ball game left. We don't need to go crazy and try to push people to the limit, because I know this time of year, it's very trying for a lot of people. Not me, because, this is what I do. But you know what? But I've got a great show for you, because what I did is we were thinking about this, and I wanted to go out and reach out to somebody whose work I admire, who's somebody that I follow on Twitter, who's I've been following over the last couple of days as the Bears have gotten back into camp, and one of the best guys at doing it. So we're going to be pleased to be joined by the editor and chief of the Windy City Gridiron. He's one of the hosts of the T Formation Conversation. He's a co-host of the Bear and Balanced with the Second City Gridiron. He's been killing it. Listen, he's been killing it out there with Bears coverage. He's been out there in, I was about to say Arlington Heights, but it is Lake Forest. Please welcome to the show for I believe the first time, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Sorry, I got to get the A in there.
I know, right?
Lester, I'm sorry. I botched the intro. And
I'm good with it.
It hurts me. I want to make sure that I give you the proper deference and respect. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Adam. How about you?
I'm doing really well. I appreciate what you've been able to do over the last couple of days, going out there and producing so much content. And I think that it's important, for Bears fans to understand that a lot of the information that we're getting is from people like yourself and all the great people who work with you and for you. So I wanted to say that I appreciate that, and I love having you on the show. How has it been? What's it like? How is Justin Fields winning MVP? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm ready. I would listen to the intro you had there. Yeah, Justin Fields, man, he's been sharp. I mean, the stuff that happened last week, I heard he was doing real good. The offense was a bit, inconsistent yesterday, but today, things are back, and he's growing as a quarterback. He's growing as a passer, and that's what we want to see as Bears fans. We want to see Justin Fields take that next step, and with the weapons around him now, with the O-line revamped, I can't see him not taking that next step as a quarterback.
Is it really as simple? Because you look at things that happened over the last couple of years. Josh Allen was struggling as a quarterback. Nobody thought he could throw. You bring in Stephon Diggs. Oh, wait, look, he's good. Jalen Hurts wasn't – I don't think that Jalen Hurts was ever bad. But obviously you bring in A.J. Brown. That was a good move. Is it as simple as adding somebody like DJ Moore? Because it feels like it's kind of added something to the Bears, not only just to the offense, but just to the team in general.
I mean, that's part of it. I mean, part of it is you look at the receiving room as a whole now. I mean, DJ Moore sets this whole room up. DJ Moore now is the Z. Chase Claypool is your X. Darnell Mooney now is in your slots. You can bring in the rookie Scott off the bench. Velus Jones Jr. has 4-3 speed. He's coming off the bench now. Equinemius St. Brown, who the Bears counted on last year, now he's probably your fifth guy to play some special teams for you. So adding a legit number one just sets this whole room up for success. And DJ Moore, he is a legit number one. He is fantastic. He has looked great in camp so far. The connection Fields to Moore is definitely real.
It's funny because I know that this time of year, I have to go with it because doing fantasy content as well. You grab these videos and you're like, oh, look at Bijan Robinson. Look at George Pickens or anybody like that doing things. What is it like when you're actually there, though? When you see DJ Moore? Because I know it's been a long time since we had, and I know that people snicker at this, but like Cutler and Brandon Marshall were like a legitimate tandem. Like those were two really good football players. Is it kind of similar to that? Is it exceeding it? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there's something about Justin Fields, because maybe it's because we drafted him. It just feels better, but it just feels like there's an extra excitement as opposed to any other time going back to the 80s or something like that.
I've been to parts of every camp, since Justin Fields has been a Bear, and the fans are just excited. The fans cannot wait for him to be a top quarterback in the NFL. And there's just an excitement in there when you go to camp, or excitement when you go to the games, but like today, for example, the first play of the 11-11, period where it was full pads, first day, DJ Moore takes a slant, 70 yards to the house. Just, when's the last time the Bears had a player that could actually do that? And when's the last time we saw the Bears running slants consistently? I mean, the slant is back in the playbook.
Well, we didn't like it because Matt Nagy was trying to use it. It's kind of like, when you have, like, I coach AYSO, and it's like, I would love to do some concepts that Arteta is using over there in North London. It doesn't translate to the 10-year-old. And apparently it just doesn't. The 10-year-olds here just don't really seem to pick up on it. But it seems like DJ Moore and even Chase Claypool, somebody who can go out there and embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Chase Claypool. He had a great camp today. Since I've been there, one of our other guys was there on Saturday, said the same thing. Chase Claypool's involved early and often in these drills and the 7-on-7 and the 11-on-11 and stuff. I mean, we're talking about a big physical presence, 6'4", 225, 4.4 speed, very athletic. He can go up and get the ball. That's what we've seen in camp so far. I mean, I don't want to say they're forcing Claypool the ball, because he's there and he's open. He's just making plays, and it's interesting to see, because like DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, and then Darnell Mooney's being ramped up slowly because of the injury. But that's three damn good receivers for the Bears.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've had that kind of depth, even going back, like Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, obviously the most shining example of that. But it always feels like we've had one guy and then hopefully this guy can catch. I mean, we saw it a little bit last year, and we're like Darnell Mooney, who we love, he was asked to do a lot, and he wasn't getting a lot of help from the guys around him. And you talk about, obviously, DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, but I've heard great things about Tyler Scott. And I know that you made mention in your Twitter feed today that he was catching punts. It feels like he's also having a pretty nice camp so far.
The one thing that's so far where his hands have been a little consistent in the passing game, but the speed is evident. There was a play today where he called like a 50-yard bomb from Justin Fields. They were doing a 2-minute drill, and he just burned his guy. It was just a great play by Scott, great throw by Fields. His hand's been a little inconsistent, but the speed is there. The route running is there. And like you said, he has been returning punts a lot, and he looks really natural catching the punts. I'm not sure if it's going to be his job, Velus Jones' job, maybe Dante Pettis when he comes back off the injury list. But the fact that there's more options there, and Scott is showing that he has another thing he can do for the team, I think Scott's going to be a big part of this offense going forward.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we love Tyler Scott here. We love him. We love Velus. We're huge fans of both of them, and I hope that they figure it out, because I want to make sure that whomever is returning the kicks or the punts is experienced and has confidence to know what they're doing. Because it's nice to be like, hey, this guy could do it. It's like, we need somebody who can do it. Like it wasn't that long. Maybe it was that long ago that Devin Hester was back there, but like this, having that consistent player who can make things happen, I think is huge for the development of the team. But you said that Velus, how is my guy Velus looking? Like, is he doing well? I know that he gave me a shout out. One of the fans it was actually Brendan Chagru. So a fan. No, but like, how has he been? Because I know a lot of people are talking about him, and like, he's kind of in the spot here with Tyler playing so well, and with everybody coming in, that he's really got to step up. What did you see from him?
Yeah, I mean, he's looked good so far. I mean, again, we talk about speed, man. You can't teach that speed. 4.3, I'm sure the Bears are going to want to try and, if, like I said, he's not being counted on to be part of the offensive package, the top three guys. So now the Bears kind of work him in, where he can fit in, work some jet sweeps with him, some end around stuff, because he's electric with the ball in his hands. We just got to see him, put what he did in college, kind of bring it to the Bears. But the stuff I saw, it's like the other young guys. I mean, the speed shows up right away when you're watching. Just he has been mixed in with the ones a bit here and there. So I see Velus Jones as a guy that's definitely part of the future.
Yeah, it's one of the things that is a mark of a good team, is that you have your superstars. And I think of a team like the Chiefs. Maybe not as much last year because they were doing it with, but well, even so. Where you have your superstar, you have Travis Kelce, obviously the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, but you have Travis Kelce, you have Tyreek Hill, but it was always the guys like the Byron Pringle, the Mecole Hardman, just the annoying guys that come out of nowhere to make plays. And I think even last year, with Kadarius Toney would make a play, or the, Jet McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco. I want the Bears to be, and it feels like we're starting to get into that spot where the Bears have those annoying guys to opposing team, not to us, but to opposing teams, like, oh, I don't like this guy because he always seems to. We never hear from him, and he comes up with a huge catch when you least expect it. Like who do you think is going to be? Because I know like Komet's, signed the long-term contract. Bob Tunyon's out there wearing number 18. It feels like we can have a lot of those kind of guys.
You're mentioning that there's a lot of weapons on this team, and that hasn't happened in a long time for the Bears. And, we're talking about Velus and a guy like Scott, and both those guys, they have the kind of speed, whereas as a defense, you have to be cognizant of where they are as soon as they get on the field. And then you mentioned Komet, you mentioned Robert Tonyan. He was outstanding in Green Bay. He knows the scheme well, and he's, again, another guy that's playing that move tight end role for the Bears with Cole Kmet more at the inline guy. And they're going to do a lot of double tight end stuff. It's just so weird to see the Bears with multiple options in the receiving game. And then we haven't talked about the running backs, but the running back room is stacked. I mean,
what did you think of it? Yeah. Like who do you like in that running back room? I know Roshan Johnson missed practice on Tuesday, but because I've heard that Khalil Herbert's been doing pretty well, but you're there. So what do you see?
Khalil Herbert's looked good. Foreman also. One thing I noticed yesterday, they were doing a lot of check down stuff, and both Foreman and Herbert were catching the ball very well. The stuff today it was live, of course, today. I didn't see a lot of missed blocks from either one of those guys. Of course, Johnson was out. They had Travis Homer was in as well, doing some stuff on third down, doing some pass blocking there. So if Herbert can show that he has worked on his pass blocking immensely, and he talked about it, he knew that was a big problem in his game. So he worked on it quite a bit. He did some boxing, kind of get his hands right. So if Herbert can get his pass blocking right, I think Herbert has a good chance to be a 1,000-yard back. I don't think he's going to be force-fed the ball because the Bears have, 3 or 4 backs here. But, I mean, we saw Herbert last year get 5.8 yards per carry.
Yeah, when given an opportunity, the Bears had 5 instances where somebody rushed for 100 yards. Justin Fields was 3 of them. David Montgomery was one of them. And Khalil Herbert had that 100-yard game, of course. And so, like you said, it always comes down to the pass blocking. And for a lot of these young running backs, and I'll tell anybody who's interested in fantasy football, like when you see these young running backs on rosters, when you look down at like Miami, for instance, for Devon Achane, where it's like that guy will be on the field if he can pass pro. And I think the same can be said about Khalil Herbert. Like he could end up winning the job if he can pass block. I think Deontay Foreman is a player who I really like and is going to see some reps, but like the way that you really put yourself above another guy is to go out there and be able to be in pass protection. One of the things I did see again on your Twitter feed. So were you did you get to go into the locker room? Did you do the press conference?
No, I am non-traditional media, so I have to stay in the fans with the fans. Yeah, it's all good though.
I'll talk to those guys. I'll see. I got to pull some strings for you and see.
I did watch all the pressers today, though. I saw Flus and Stevenson, all those guys talking, Jenkins and Cody. No, Cody was yesterday. Yeah, I saw all the pressers.
But it was Braxton Jones. Wasn't Braxton Jones?
Braxton talked to. Yeah, he talked to. Yeah.
What about he was talking about his hands and trying to defend the bull rush? Is that still a problem that you've seen so far?
Yesterday there was a rep that he had with no pads on where the bull rush, it was really obvious on film. It looked bad. Today I didn't see too much of it, but Braxton Jones he even talked about it last year as a rookie that he knew that was a problem he had. He worked on it all off season. It's not just core strength, it's footwork, it's hand placement. And today he specifically said hand placement. He said he's getting his hands too wide on the punch. And he needs to get there's like a sweet spot where if it's too wide, there's no power, and then you're at the risk of holding. If it's too narrow, you have no leverage. So he has to find the sweet spot in there to really lock on the guy that's coming in with the bull rush and just hold him at bay.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you really the old school shoulder pads. It was right at the buckles. I always found. Listen, look at me trying to go out there and coach this guy. Listen, I was a hell of a blocking wide receiver. Our team ran all the time. So I don't really catch well. Actually, I can't catch well, but I know how to block. So whenever we played flag football, people were like, how can you block so well? Oh, my team ran the whole time. That's all I got to do when the year that I played football. But listen, you got a few more minutes. Do you mind? I know I told you I'd get you out of here.
That's cool. I'm good. I'm good.
In a decent amount of time, but I've got you here. And so I want to keep you because I want to talk about some of these other guys who are starting to step forward a little bit. And I think that Gervin Dexter is a name that I keep hearing a lot. What did you see? Because he is one of the most intriguing guys to me because I feel, and I think and I'm not alone in saying this. This is not like I've got this great insight. I think a lot of people contend that he's got but he's got a real accessible path to playing time. Has he been taking advantage of it?
Yeah, he's definitely in the mix. I'm not sure he'll be starting because the Bears have Justin Jones, probably a 3-tech, and Billings at the nose. But Dexter's been working at both positions, and he's just a physical specimen. I mean, he's huge, he's strong. One of the guys talked about today that he benches 500 pounds. He's just a monster of a man. And the knocking him, a lot of people talked about his quickness. I haven't seen that as an issue. He has pretty good get off. There was a rep today where they were doing a drill, and he got off the ball so fast, and then he actually did a slap where he slapped the shoulder pad, and I heard it. I was way in the bleachers far away, and it was loud. I mean, he's a strong dude, and I think Dexter, he has a chance to be really special.
Yeah, he is one of those guys who's intriguing, and I love everything about his story as well because, it is one of those things about, if you don't play, if you don't play in a system, if you don't play in a Matt Eberflus system in college, it's hard to go look at his statistics and be like, well, this guy is obviously not great because he's asked to do something completely different, which is why it's very important to go out there and be able to coach in these Senior Bowl type situations where you get a chance oh, wow, I didn't realize this guy was as good as this. You didn't know that Dave Grohl could sing until after, Nirvana and he started the Foo Fighters. But one of the guys I was curious. Let me ask you one more question because I want to get into this. I'm going to let you think about this for a second because one of the things I always love to do is when I go in and hey, somebody's coming on, somebody who I haven't met in person, and be oh, what are they into? I go look at their Twitter feed. Who do they follow? What is it? If you look at my Twitter feed and you went through it long enough, you're oh, okay, he's following the Beastie Boys and the Red Hot Chili. So okay, so I kind of got a little bit of a sense. I couldn't get that from you. So before you go, I'm going to get your favorite band. I'm going to get your favorite TV show. Put that in the back of your mind. I'm not going to put you on the spot right now because I do want to talk about Terrell Smith, who, gosh, it sounds like he has been killing it because I've been saying this over the last couple of weeks that obviously the Chase Claypool, giving up the 32nd overall pick and Steeler fans. I was in Pittsburgh a couple of weeks ago, had to hear them crowing about that. But I'm listen, if Tyreek Stevenson is better than Joey Porter Jr., it's over. But it feels like Terrell Smith is coming in and really making a name for himself at training camp. What have you seen so far?
Well, he was playing some safety reps, a week ago. And then, Coach Flus said he looked so good with the corners as a reserve. They wanted to give him some time with the ones, and he's been getting it. And he's been starting the last 2 days with the ones, and I thought he's looked pretty good. I mean, we're talking about a 5th-round rookie. He was kind of a late bloomer at Minnesota in college, but he had a great East-West Shrine game. He kind of put himself back on the radar of NFL scouts. I mean, I'm not sure if he'll end up winning the job over Stevenson, because Stevenson, I mean, when he's been there, he's looked good too. But this is a good problem to have with the Bears. You have 2 talented rookies. You're not sure who's going to start. And then you have Jalen Johnson on the other side. And one thing I noticed in camp is they've been moving Jalen Johnson right to left. He's not just staying on one side of the field. So they probably plan on having Jalen Johnson travel with the best receiver, which will let the rookie kind of have the other side, which is probably the best thing for the Bears to do. But it's just, again, a good problem to have. We talk about the receiving core. We're having a lot of weapons. The defensive backs now, that's a hell of a group.
Yeah, that is one of the things. And Smith was somebody who stood out to me on draft night, because I was able to talk to a couple of our draft guys. We've had, Daniel Jeremiah, but he doesn't come on the show. He's too big. But like Chad Ryder, who does a great job for the NFL.com, and he's been on the show a couple of times. He really likes Terrell Smith. And he's like, you know what? That's actually a really good pick and I'm like, actually, like, why do you got to put that adjective in front of it? Like, you're shocked that Ryan Poles went out there and pulled a rabbit out of his hat in the 5th round. He did it last year with Braxton Jones. Why not Terrell Smith? So it does feel like a little bit like, again, like a great problem to have, where you have possibly too many guys, because it really is important, because Jalen Johnson being who he is, and if he's the travel corner this year, even better. I think Kyler Gordon showed enough last year to be the slot corner, which is a huge position. Like Carbon and I talk about this a lot. Like, slot corner is so huge, because think of the receivers who line up in the slot all the time now. How have you seen? How has Kyler been doing? Did you get a chance to check him out today?
Yeah, I mean, he looks good too. I mean, he's definitely starting at the nickel. He even talked about how much he is excited the chance that he has a chance to lock in now at slot corner, because last year they kind of moving around quite a bit. He's still getting some reps on the outside here and there, but he knows his role is a nickel. And in this, especially in the Coach Flus's scheme, he counts in the nickel do a lot. I mean, they got to do all the run fits. They have to, of course, cover, talented receivers out of the slot. Those guys, they're not just the short, shifty guys from back in the day. Now teams are putting their tight ends in the slot. I mean, you have to be able to cover, everyone from the little guys to the big guys. And I think Kyler Gordon, he has the skill set to do that.
Yeah, I think he took a couple of tough reps last year, as he was growing into the position. But I wasn't really sweating too much last year, because I always felt like, hey, like, go out and learn the position right now. Slot corner, again, as you said, is so important to the Bears and Matt Eberflus that, when the coaching staffs, and that's the one thing I loved, is that they weren't really on like a yo-yo. Like Braxton Jones had some rough reps last year, but you know what? He still was able to start every game. Kyler Gordon was still able to go out there. And even if they're having trouble now, I think it's important to remember, like, it is still so early in training camp that even if Braxton Jones is getting blown up on a play, or somebody misses a tackle or something like that, it's like, it is still very early in the process. So it is cool. Like, but I'm glad that you're out there and able to do it. What is it? How much longer, how many more times do you plan on going? Are you going to go to like Fan Fest on Sunday? What is on your itinerary for the next couple of weeks?
For me, my camp stuff is done unless I can find another ticket to go. I have a vacation coming up next week, but we have 2 of our guys going down to Indianapolis to watch the games, the practice with the Colts. And, being in Indianapolis, there is no video policy. So I'm sure our guys are going to be able to tweet out some actual video plays of the Bears, because that's not allowed at Hallis Hall. If you do that, you get in big trouble.
Yeah, what is that like? I know that people are upset about it, but I mean, at the same time, like, we're getting access. Like, sometimes it's too much. But for a team that turned down Hard Knocks, for a quarterback that turned down the QB show from Omaha Productions, like, is it really that big of a show? Are we really that bad? I listen. I'll rely on you guys and all the contraband video that we can get out there. I tried to sneak some last year, and they mad dogged me, and I'm like, okay, I won't do that again. But it's still fun to be out there.
Well, it's fun to be out there. I mean, like, we never do video because we don't want to get in trouble, because we, try and take it as serious as possible. But, there's guys that they sneak the video. They're fine. Like today we had one of our guys was doing just a Q&A with a mic, in the stand.
With the fans. Yeah, with the fans. Yeah.
Just some fans asked him the Bears record, and a security came up and said, hey, you're not allowed to record even audio. And we're like, well, that's not on the list. But oh yeah, that's not allowed either. Like, okay, we won't do it then. No big deal. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's such a tough balance because like sometimes I feel like the security is kind of overstepping. Like you get one guy who just wants to be like, you know what, I want to make sure that the McCaskey family notices the job that I'm doing, which is great. Like, listen, we all need to feed our families, so it's all good. But at some point, like, if you kind of look the other way, I feel like the other day when I was coming out of SoFi Stadium, I think this cop was giving me the ability to. He was going to look the other way, but I couldn't quite read the situation. I was trying to drive my friend to the airport, and I'm like, well, the last thing I need is to get pulled over because we are already like in danger of missing his flight. But in any event, that's neither here nor there. But listen, I want to let everybody know you can follow Lester at Wiltfong, like Wilt is stilt, Wiltfong Jr. at Wiltfong Jr. Windy City Gridiron, Baron Ballads on the Second City Gridiron. Anything else you need to promote while we have you?
No, that's it. I think you got them all covered.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you coming on. I've wanted to have you on for quite some time, so it was nice to finally get you on. So thanks so much for doing it.
Anytime. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much. There he goes. The great Lester Wiltfong. Lester A. Gosh dang. I keep forgetting the A. How do I keep forgetting the A? It is so unlike me considering, I am, an A myself. But in any event, great stuff that's been happening at Hallis Hall. I wanted to talk to you a little bit right now before we move any forward about fantasy football, because some of the things that we were talking about also apply to fantasy football. And I want to let you know that Underdog Fantasy is the easiest way to play fantasy sports. It's simple to get started. Just head to underdogfantasy.com or download the app. Sign up with the promo code SICK, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. Super easy, super convenient to have on your phone as well. Earlier today, Roshan Johnson did not practice. I got an update on my phone thanks to Underdog Fantasy. So not only is it a way for you to be involved in fantasy football, it's also a way for you to continue to keep up with the news as it happens. And I also want to announce, like, we are going to be playing leagues. If you ever wanted to play against me in a fantasy football league, if you're like, oh, rank's not that good, I'll take them on. Well, we're going to have a league that's going to be hosted by Underdog, and you guys can put your money where your mouth is. And we'll play for some charity. We'll go out there and have a good time. So make sure that you have the Underdog Fantasy app downloaded, ready to go. If you haven't done it yet, do it now. Use the promo code SICK. Because be ready, because when we put the call out for some fantasy football, I want you to be able to go out there and be ready to go and have some fun. All right, let's turn to some questions, because I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who have some questions. Once again, big thanks to Lester A. Wiltfong for joining us here. Little report from Hallis Hall. We've got a question from Lucas. With all the new additions on the offensive side, what difference should we expect from Getsy's play calling? He has a lot more tools to work with this year. And that's absolutely the truth. Great, good question, Lucas. I think one of the things that we love is having the continuity and having the ability to start camp with our offensive line pretty much settled. Now, obviously, Nate Davis missed. Lucas Patrick was filling in at right guard. I think there were some other juggling, getting some guys in with some reps. But last year, it was a scramble. We didn't see Tevin Jenkins until well into August. We didn't know where he was going to play. Who was playing center? It was Mustafa. And we never believed that Braxton Jones was going to be the left tackle. We just thought, he's just working out there. And then he's going to fling back over to the right. But one of the things about having the offensive line settle is it does give the play caller a little bit of continuity. And I think last year too, there was a big kind of a feeling out process, kind of figuring out what Justin Fields is doing, what he's good at, where can he go? Like what is going to make him successful? And I think at some point, you had the Commanders game, and that came down to the wire. Obviously, we remember what happened, and it came down to the Darnell Mooney play. I mean, the only reason the Commanders scored is because, unfortunately, our friend Velus Jones made a mistake on special teams that allowed the Commanders to score a touchdown. We weren't able to capitalize. And by the way, if I can say one thing, the Commanders fans crack me up, because last year I do my record predictions, as you are all well aware. I have the Bears winning 12 to 13 games every season. We all know what happens. But I'm like, the Commanders aren't a very good football team. Like they'll be lucky to win 3 games or somewhere around there. And their fans are coming out of it like, oh, what about your prediction last year? I'm like, did you guys make the playoffs? Did I miss it? The dog ass NFC, you guys couldn't even make the Giants made the playoffs and you guys didn't. Like, oh, congratulations. You won 8 games. The only thing that did was kept you from drafting a real quarterback. You could have been in the mix for CJ Stroud, or Bryce Young, or somebody like that, but you had to go out there and win a bunch of football games that you shouldn't have won, including the one against the Chicago Bears. You went on a little bit of a miracle streak, and then you crashed down to earth, and the reality set in. You're not a very good football team, not a good organization, not a good football team. You might be able to win some games here and there. You're overloaded on defense, and yet you want to sit here and you want to bark at me because you won a couple of more games than I thought you would, but still ultimately you didn't make the playoffs. And I forget what my point is, and I know I was going somewhere, but it was after that game and losing to that dog bleep organization is where I think that Getsy was like, all right, well, we got to take the training wheels off. At one point, and I did this with my daughter, when she was learning how to ride her bike, it's like, at some point, like, you just got to ride your bike. I'm done. I'm done with the training wheels. Like, just ride it. And it's not going to be easy. It's not always going to look great. You might need more room, but ultimately she started riding her bike and now she's very proficient at it. She knows what she's doing. And I think that's what happened with the Chicago Bears. And even last year in some of these games, as they were going into they weren't tanking, but there's also a different mindset that you take about like, well, who can do what? Who can play where? What plays work? What throws can Justin make? What can he do? What can he do? And there was a lot of that stuff going on. I think having a full off season, now you kind of understand where Justin Fields is at. Luke Getsy, there's no secrets. There's no, hey, I forgot to get Lester's favorite song and movie or TV show or whatever. But like, Justin Fields by now. Okay. You know what's going to work and what's not going to work. I think that opens up the playbook and even expands it. And I think now what they're going to do is lean on everybody's strengths. You heard Lester talking about it a moment ago. DJ Moore out there running slants. Like, we are going to be running plays that fit our personnel. And I think that we're going to take a tremendous jump. It was huge last year. As a matter of fact, I will get out these. I had some numbers set aside for this very reason. So I'm glad that you asked this question. But here's my thing. And let's talk about this. Okay. Justin Fields had 18 total touchdowns in his final 8 games played in 2022, 7 touchdowns in his first 7. Weeks 1 through 7, he completed just under 56% of his passes, 7 total touchdowns, 6 picks. His passer rating, 74.6. From weeks 8 through 17. Now, remember, he missed week 12 with a shoulder injury. He missed week 18 with a hip injury. But in those 8 games, his completion percentage was right around 64%, 18 total touchdowns. He had just 5 interceptions, a passer rating of 93.1. And now, as we are sitting there having these conversations, we are talking about how many more weapons are available to Justin Fields. Like Bob Tunyon, remember a couple of years ago, and I remember this distinctly from fantasy football, is that Bob Tunyon had that random year where he had like 12 touchdowns. Like Devontae Adams was still awesome, but Bob Tunyon had like 12 touchdowns and just went out there. And that's what the Bears need. And I think with so many different players and so many, and Lester, again, talking about the checkdowns, so many different ways to attack football teams that you can be effective. And, and let's not forget, there is still a baseline that if S ever goes wrong, Justin Fields is going to be able to run the football. So for me, I think there's a wide variety. I think people are still sort of sleeping on it too much. People want to sit here in the comments or not necessarily here, but on Instagram or wherever, and just talking random generalities that Justin Fields can't throw or this or that. Like a lot of that stuff's going to be blown up. So I hope the haters are enjoying their time right now, enjoying their time in the sun. But this is the end of the second act where it looks bad for our heroes, but our their comeuppance, I don't know. We're eventually going to be proven correct, and Justin Fields is going to go out there. So So I think he's going to end up having a great season. I think we're going to see a lot of variety from Luke Getsy. I truly hope, and I don't want to put too much into this game against Green Bay because it's the first game, and you don't want to put the entire world into one game because it's not a make or break game. But I remember in 2019 being so excited, like, oh, we got it. Like, we're just coming off the playoffs. This is going to be such a great season. We open up that week 1 game, the 100th anniversary game against the Packers, and it was flipping brutal. And it was so bad. If that happens, I might be apocalyptic. But the truth of it is, it's like, it wasn't really our offense didn't suck last year, especially at the end. So I think we're going to be pretty good. I think we're going to see a lot more variety. And so I think there's a lot to be excited about, Lucas. And thank you so much for the question. All right. Do we have another one, Sammy? The Heart Foundation. Thank you. Ask Rank. If the Bears could come up, would you be up? Hold on. Them trade. Okay. Listen, here's what I'm saying. Okay. If the Bears would you be against? Okay. Would you be against the Bears trading for Jonathan Taylor? I just don't really see it as a need at this point. I think Jonathan Taylor is a great running back, and I think that ultimately he's going to end up playing for the Indianapolis Colts because these things always seem to have a way of working themselves out, and we'll talk about Danielle Hunter. I wish Carmen was here so we could talk about that, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But like, these things always seem dire. Like, remember a couple of days ago, I even tweeted this out in regards to Danielle Hunter. I'm like, oh, and it's a joke. I'm just trying to materialize things, trying to get under the skin of the Minnesota Vikings fans, which is increasingly easy. But it looked like Danielle Hunter was never going to play for Minnesota. Like, nothing's happening or anything like that. But, they worked out a contract. Not only did Danielle Hunter return to the Minnesota Vikings, but he also signed a contract that prohibited them from franchise tagging him the next season, which means that Hunter will be a Bear next year. So we'll just have to wait one season for him to eventually make his rightful place in Chicago. When I look at Jonathan Taylor, if I'm his agent, I look at that situation the very same and be like, yeah, like, okay, we'll sign, but you also can't tag us. And I think that's the key for running backs. And I think that's the next step, as these running backs continue to make noise like, we don't like being underpaid. We don't like the fact that Cole Kmet is making more than me or something like that. And no disrespect to Cole Kmet, no disrespect to anybody who's going out there and getting paid, but there is a little bit of an inequity for a running back whose career is going to be remarkably shorter. And I think that the key to the entire thing, the two keys to me are either you extend how long a franchise tag exists to where, like, if I'm Austin Eckler and I'm franchise tagged, then I get tagged and I have to be a top 5 paid running back for 3 consecutive years, which would kind of, be essentially a 3-year deal. And so that would be cool. That would be, that makes a little bit of sense. Or work out these deals like, hey, even when you sign your rookie deal, like, you cannot give me a 5th-year option. You cannot franchise tag me, because the Giants have pretty much effectively just used up Saquon Barkley, who is going back and playing. And, listen, you got to do what you got to do. But you know what? They're using him up, because if you draft a running back in the first round, like, look at the Falcons right now. If you draft Bijan Robinson, well, you get him for 5 years. You can franchise tag him for 6. And at that point, like, okay, well, let's move on. Who knows where the franchise will be in 6 years. So I think for these running backs, they need to go out there and work their deals to be like, you know what? You can't franchise tag me. So with all that being said, I expect Jonathan Taylor to be the Colts running back next season. This season. I would be shocked if he gets dealt. And if he does, I don't think the Bears are the best fit. I really do like the running backs that we have, unless there was a major injury, multiple major injuries. I think that they've built a lot of depth right now. Even with Roschon Johnson not practicing on Tuesday, you think about Khalil Herbert and Deontay Foreman being available, catching passes, doing their all around awesome things. Like, you don't need that run. You don't need to bring in a Jonathan Taylor. I don't think that that's the make it or break it guy. I think there are some teams that might be closer. I think the Dallas Cowboys would be a team. I think the Cowboys have convinced themselves that they're close enough to make a run, but you don't see a lot of teams that are like a running back away. I did see that Marlon Mack could end up playing a lot of time for the Seattle Seahawks because Kenneth Walker, and we're out on Kenneth Walker forever, but Kenneth Walker is not playing. Zach Charbonneau also battling an injury. So unless there is something huge and, because nobody's trading. That's the thing. Like, Austin Eckler was available earlier this year and nobody's trading. And these teams ask for like such ridiculous returns. Like, these teams are like, they don't want to pay him. Okay. They don't want to give him long-term deals. Like, but anytime somebody tries to make an offer, they're like, well, I need 9 first-round picks. You're like, well, you're not dealing from a place of fairness. So that's unfortunate for those guys. And I'm sorry. I was just watching Zach Neto beat out what would have been a double play, and he got an RBI. So good news for the Angels. All right. Somebody asked me too. Oh, somebody was pissed because they're like, oh, you like the Bears more than you like the Angels. And that question was never answered, nor will it be. How about another question though, Sammy? We keep hearing about offense and defense, but what about the special teams? How do you think we'll be in that department? Well, one of the good things about having depth and about having all these guys who want to come in and make an impact. And you think about Terrell Smith and players like that, and who are fighting for a job, or even, one of the running backs like Roshan Johnson. They got to go out and make their mark in special teams. That is the most important thing that they need to do because, for a lot of times, if you don't have a starting role available to you, then you need to go out there and earn your playing time on special teams. Terrell Davis, who ended up having a Hall of Fame career with the Denver Broncos, his earliest experience with the ball club was on special teams. And so I think for a lot of these guys who want to go out there and be on this team, like let's talk about our friend Velus Jones. If Velus Jones, if we get an opportunity to talk to him, or if I was counseling him or anything like that, I would tell him point blank, like, you have got to be not only like, not even thinking about it as a returner, like not even like on that stuff, but like being a special teams player. Like there's 11 guys out there on special teams. Not everybody is the returner. You got to find a way to contribute. And because of that, and because of the depth that we're starting to see being brought into Chicago, it leads me to believe that our special teams could end up being pretty good. And that is one of the best things. Like, you want to be good in special teams. Like, you hear about it, like all three phases of the game. You want to win all 3 phases of the game. And really, when you look at last season, a couple of our losses, I'm thinking, I think it was one of the Minnesota games, Washington for sure. It was the special teams miscues. Might have been the same guy too, but whatever. But special teams mistakes are what cost the Bears at least 2 games, which is a catch-22 on a team that's tanking. But at the same time, like, it really is a make or break proposition. But I do believe, and we'll start to get a sense of it as we get closer to the games. We'll have a game here in a couple of weeks. We'll see how the special teams comes along. But thankfully, with the talent being built, that's one of the cool parts too about having so many draft picks. We're not just throwing all these undrafted rookies out there. We have actual draft picks who can go out there and perform. So I think that the special teams is going to be better just as a result of the team and the overall roster being better. All right, Sammy, how about another question? I keep hearing mixed reviews on Fields holding the ball too long, holding the ball too still. What have you heard about the Bears inside? You know what? Lester was talking about this too. I think that there is still going to be some hesitation as Justin is continuing to grow as a quarterback. And I think it's only natural. This will be an issue with a lot of quarterbacks, and it happens to every quarterback. There are, like, every quarterback who has ever entered the NFL save perhaps Patrick Mahomes or somebody like that. But like there is an issue of holding the football as you're starting to process so much information. And as much as we see Justin Fields out there working out with his friends, bringing them all down to Florida or all the workout videos and everything that we've seen through the offseason, there is no replacement for actual game type situations, which is why it's important, not only for training camp and not only for these preseason games, but stuff like doing the controlled scrimmages with the Indianapolis Colts is to have Justin Fields out there practicing his decision making. Like you only get better through repetition. It's kind of like if you're playing Madden, there's only so much you can do against the computer. You ever wonder why when you first were, picking up the sticks and sitting down, you'd smoke the computer 64-0. Your Bears dynasty franchise on Madden 04 was 16-0 every year. And then you would play your buddy and he would beat you by 35 points. And you're like, how did this happen? It's like, because you're not playing against a human being. There is no substitute for going out there and having real reps. So if early in camp, if Justin is, digesting information and trying to do that, that's understandable. And it's kind of like why your golf swing will suffer a lot of times. You go out there, you're thinking about too many things. Like Dustin Johnson, that's probably a bad example. Jordan Spieth might not be a great example either, but you know what? A lot of those guys, like it's second nature to them. Ricky Fowler, second nature. That's where we need Justin Fields to be. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's probably not going to be the finished product this season. I think he's going to be a lot better. I think he's going to make a lot better decisions this season. But yeah, so again, don't worry about, and whatever we hear about in training camp too, like you got to let it go. Like it's fun to talk about who's been looking good and we're excited and we're going to talk about this. I only accept the good and I shun the bad. No, but like think about it a couple of years ago. Like remember when Jamar Chase couldn't catch a football? Last year, they thought Joe Burrow had forgotten how to play because he was coming back from his injury. Like, no, like it's fine. Like, let's not overreact. I'm sure there's been some plays and everything is blown up. And this is why we're not allowed to go out there and videotape practice because everybody wants to be like, well, he held the ball too long on this one. Like, yeah, he's practicing. Just gosh dang it. Their number 9 hole hitter, Michael Harris, who robbed Shohei Ohtani of a home run on Monday night, hits a go-ahead home. Who cares? You guys don't care. But listen, I know you're all Cubs fans. Hey, by the way, Cubs. Sorry about the White Sox, though. Sorry about the White Sox shipping off everybody. But the Cubs. Well, the Cubs were not buyers, but they kept Bellinger. You figured out how to you fixed a former MVP who'll probably end up staying in Chicago because of it. You guys better pay him the money because he's probably worth it. Although that guy frightens me. Do we have another question, Sam? I want to make sure because I didn't want to go over one of the. All right, fine. Don't yell at me. What kind of stat line? Okay. I'm glad you asked this question. I'm going to settle in here as we're talking about Chase Claypool. What kind of stat line? Thank you for the question. It's a good question. Thinking about stat line, that's the one thing that the internet will always point to is they'll cherry pick statistics and they'll show you some things and be like, hey, look, this was a bust and you could have had this for that. I think that the way that you quantify the impact of Chase Claypool is how the team performs when he's on the field. For any hockey fans, and I guess basketball, the NBA probably does this too, where you have like plus minus. How much better is the team when he's out there? Now, if Chase Claypool had 30 receptions, but 9 touchdowns, and the Bears go 13-4, I would consider that a success. But I don't want to put it in that kind of like general terms. Like, how is the offense functioning? Like, if he's out there, and this is where it really breaks down to people who know ball and why it's important to pay attention to shows like The Tape Never Lies and things like this, or anybody, Baldy's breakdowns, these kind of stuff. Like how much one player in one spot can have on everybody else. Now, for a lot of people, it's probably going to end up being DJ Moore, who makes that impact of the tide that rises all boats. But having Claypool, and even Lester talked about this a moment ago, having somebody out there who, and again, they're not trying to force him the ball, but if you're getting open all the time, then you go out there and catch it. Is he catching his targets? Is he helping to move the chains? Is he doing the little things? Like when you look at a lot of these championship teams, there's always a lot of players who do a lot of little things. Like Danny Amendola probably never won you a fantasy football title, but he did a lot of things that helped the New England Patriots win. Rob Gronkowski never put up the statistics, not to my recollection, that Travis Kelce does with the touchdowns and everything like that. But he did a lot of things that helped both the New England Patriots and Tampa Bay Buccaneers win some Super Bowls. And I think that is the true value of a player. And that is what we want from a guy like Chase Claypool, is that you're out there making the plays when you're called upon. Again, I don't want to go out there and put 1,000 receiving yards or 10 touchdowns or anything like that. The guys in the organization will know if he's making an impact or not. So if Chase Claypool goes out there and does what the coaching staff is asking him to the point that he is getting his contract extended, then we will know it was a trade worth making. And really, unless, and again, the same thing with Joey Porter. If Joey Porter is not the best player in the NFL or the best cornerback or not better than Tyreek Stevenson or even now Terrell Smith, then I don't want to hear it from the Steelers fans ever again. Like, okay, you got your essentially, which it really wasn't, but you got your essentially a first round pick. And this guy better be damn good to justify all the things and all the smack that you've been talking. But really, I think that as long as Chase Claypool's out there and, let the memes happen, let the people make fun of the time against the Minnesota Vikings when he danced in the field. That's fair. But it's what's going to happen moving forward, which what really counts. And as long as the Bears are winning and Justin Fields is improving as a passer, and he's a part of that, he's a reason why that's happening, then that's good enough for me. All right. Do we have another question? I'll take questions. Like I didn't want to go. I had something prepared, Sam. You saw the rundown. How bad do we think Nagy wants to beat the Bears? You know what? That's one of the things. I'll use a baseball example. The Angels had a player named Mike Napoli, who was their catcher, who was one of my favorite players, who was a cool guy. We would see him in the bars in Newport Beach. I was a young guy. He was a young guy. We'd sort of hang out in the same bars down there in Newport Beach, California. Loved him. And then but the Angels, the organization loved this guy named Jeff Mathis. Mike Scioscia, the manager of the Angels, did not like Mike Napoli, and Napoli ended up getting traded. And he goes to the Rangers. He plays for the Rangers. Oh, no, we traded to Toronto, who immediately flips him to the Rangers. And he eventually plays for Boston, doing all this stuff. I think Mike Napoli hit 900 against the Angels for the rest of it. I swear to God, like it's insanity. The guy always had a clutch knock against the Angels. And for me, that's exactly what Matt Nagy would love to do with the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think that he has the ability. He's not going to be the reason. Like, you've got Andy Reid and you've got Patrick Mahomes. Like, I could pretty much be calling the plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, and we would have been pretty successful. But Nagy, and if for some reason, if somehow the Kansas City Chiefs managed to steal a victory against the Chicago Bears in week 3, oh, for crying out loud, we're going to be hearing about Matt Nagy revenge game, all that stuff. Oh, I'm already dreading my life on Twitter that week, where people asking me questions like, hey, do I start Sky Moore this week? And the Matt Nagy revenge game, which, by the way, Sky Moore, actually a pretty good player to have. He's one of my sleepers this year. I don't know. I don't know who counts as sleepers anymore. Like people always like, give me a sleeper. Like, is Sky Moore good enough? Like, no, that's too easy. You're like, okay, Michael Wilson of the Arizona Cardinals, who could end up being their number 2 wide receiver. But players like that. But I think that it'll be a thing with Matt Nagy, and we'll hear about it. So I think he definitely wants to. Like although at the same time, it's like Matt Nagy can't be walking around thinking that he was done dirty by the Chicago Bears. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't sack him after one season. Like, he was given multiple opportunities. We didn't pull a Nathaniel Hackett, which, by the way, I like the beef. Like, people always love the angst in sports until it actually happens. And then it was like Sean Payton coming out and being like, just saying the obvious. Like, oh yeah, Nathaniel Hackett was terrible. And then everybody's clutching their pearls. And you're like, the guy got fired. Like, he legitimately was terrible at his job. Like, we don't need to spare anybody's feelings. Like, Nathaniel Hackett got fired. Like, I don't think he finished out the season. He was fired. So Aaron Rodgers can sit there and get butthurt and like, there's a code. Like, shut up. He was a bad NFL head coach. I think that what Aaron Rodgers was saying about Nathaniel Hackett made a lot of sense. Like, because whenever you watched him on the mic'd up, like, this is the thing, man. Like, he was on a mic'd up episode, and I was there. This is back when I was with the NFL Network, and I was sitting there with Brian Baldinger, and we were watching these videos, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, who's that guy who's mic'd up? Like, who's a mic'd up guy? And I'm like, that's Nathaniel Hackett. Like that's their coach. That's their head coach. He's like, what? It's like, that guy sounds like a special teams coach. Like, oh, I know. Like, it's going to be tough. Like, you got him and you got Cornball Russ, who I still love, but like these two guys, like, you need that bad guy. And I think what Sean Payton did was sort of brilliant, because I think that to overcome some of the things that happened last season with the Denver Broncos, to kind of overlook how bad it really was, is like, you need something new to focus on. It reminds me of this episode of Scrubs where the hospital staff is divided, arguing over some political issue. And the chief of staff, Bob Kelso, realizes like the staff is better when they have one common enemy. So Sean Payton has essentially come in and become the enemy that people focus on. People are no longer talking about how the Broncos sucked last year. They're not questioning Russell Wilson. Hey, is Russell Wilson good? No. They're coming after Sean Payton. And I feel like he's done this by design. He's made himself that lightning rod of controversy that's all the people are talking about. So they're not asking questions about Javonte Williams' health or anything like that. They are just focusing in on Sean Payton, which to me is kind of a nice move. And of course, Aaron Rodgers, being the critical thinker that he is, buys into it. You're doing exactly what Sean Payton wants you to do. You're getting everybody to focus over here instead of focusing on this kind of situation. It's kind of a brilliant move. So I think that Matt Nagy, and again, I don't know why he is pissed, but he is. Probably. I don't know. What more did you want? You want another year? Did you need another year, Matt Nagy? Like, how long was this dog and pony show supposed to go? You could have been fired after 2019. Like, we could have been like, yeah, maybe. After Mitch Trubisky won the MVP, he could have legitimately been fired. But whatever. Yeah, he's probably upset. All right. I don't know if there was anything else, Sammy. If there is, flash it up. I did want to go over this thing because I did get this. I do have some information I was doing. And I want to focus in. First of all, I know a lot of people, and maybe I can say this because Carmen's not here, so there's nobody to rain on my parade. But, the Bears finished last season with a 3-14 record, which was the worst in the NFL. The Bears did not win a divisional game. Their last winning season was 2018, 12-4, lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Bears have won the NFC North one time in the last 12 years. The Packers have won the NFC North 8 out of the last 12 seasons. The Vikings have won it 3 times. The Lions, why are you in this conversation? But this is why one of the special things about the NFL and why I want you to have a little bit of optimism going into the coming season is that there have been at least 4 playoff teams that were not in the postseason the year prior in each season since 1990. For 33 consecutive seasons, there are 4 teams in the playoffs every year who are not in the playoffs the previous season. There have been 7 such teams in each of the last 3 years. 7! Of course, the 2020 playoffs were the first time with the 14-team format, but 7 teams that did make the playoffs over the last 3 years. The most improved teams in 2022 were the Vikings, Lions. Each had 9 wins after 3 wins in 2021. The Giants had 9 wins after 4 in 2021. The Vikings had 13 wins after 8 in 2021. All of them improved their win totals by 5 such wins from 21 to 22. And at least one team has gone from worst to first, winning its division the season after finishing in or tied for last place in 18 of the last 20 seasons. And of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars did it last year. So I ask all of you, when people question your optimism and want to laugh and make fun, and have their little jokes, but understand it is a very real trend. It's a very real possibility, given how competitive the Bears were at the end of last season, that they will have that turnaround that leads them to 9 wins, to 10 wins, and possibly the playoffs. So keep this in mind moving forward and moving through camp as you hear people talking smack and wanting to belittle you for believing that this Bears team has what it takes to be one of those squads that goes from worst to first. Because I really do think that we have a great opportunity. The division is ripe for it. Everybody, like the Lions, I applaud you for the way that you finished, but every team has question marks. And I think the Bears have a real chance. So listen, I want to thank everybody for being here. Lester A. Wiltfong Jr., appreciate him being on. Carmen Vitale will hopefully be back next week. Want to thank everybody who joined us here tonight. Thanks for all the questions. Really appreciate you popping on. I know there's a lot of places you can go for Bears news and information, and we appreciate you being here every Tuesday night. So we will see you in the coming days. And until that time, bear down. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy.